That evening, I came home earlier than usual. Work had been a blur of meetings, endless emails, and phone calls. My mind was frazzled from the constant pace of the office, and I couldn't wait to just get home, kick off my shoes, and relax for a bit. The house was quiet when I opened the door, the kind of silence that felt both peaceful and unsettling. I wasn't sure what it was, but the stillness of it all felt like something was out of place. As I walked through the living room, I noticed the soft glow of the kitchen light flickering from beneath the door. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she was making dinner, or perhaps she was lost in thought, enjoying some solitude after a long day. Emily loved her quiet moments in the kitchen. It was where she did a lot of her thinking, where she found comfort in chopping vegetables or stirring a pot. It was her space, and I never questioned it. But tonight, something felt different. As I approached the doorway, I paused for a second. There was a sound, soft laughter, coming from inside the room. I couldn't quite place it, but there was something about it that caught me off guard. It wasn't the usual, easygoing laughter we shared over dinner, or the kind of laughter that slipped out when something amusing happened. This one was different. It was warm, too warm. It had a familiarity to it that felt almost like int asterisk Macy. I hesitated. My heart gave an uncomfortable tug. I wanted to brush it off, tell myself I was just overthinking things, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Slowly, I stepped forward and pushed the door open just a crack. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her back slightly hunched, a phone pressed to her ear. The soft hum of the conversation was punctuated by the occasional laugh that seemed to reverberate through the room. I paused, watching her in silence for a moment. It wasn't just the sound of the laughter that made me pause, but the way she was leaning forward, her expression softening as she listened to whoever was on the other end of the line. Her eyes were sparkling, and her lips were curled into the kind of smile that told me everything. This wasn't just a friendly conversation. It was the kind of smile she used to give me when we were at our best. The kind that made me feel like the only person in the world. It felt like the air shifted around me, as if I had walked into a moment that didn't belong to me. A part of me wanted to leave the room, to give her the space she seemed to be sharing with someone else. But I didn't. I stayed there, frozen in the doorway, unable to move. Then, almost as if she could feel my presence, she glanced up. The sudden shift in her demeanor was enough to make me freeze. For the briefest moment, her eyes widened, the smile faltering as she saw me standing there. It was a look that could have been mistaken for surprise, but there was something else, something deeper behind it. Guilt? Maybe. Or maybe she just didn't want me to see the side of her she had been sharing with someone else. She quickly shifted in her seat, almost too quickly, and clicked off the phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she did so. "Oh, hey, just talking to a friend from high school," she said, her voice laced with that familiar forced cheerfulness that didn't quite reach her eyes. She seemed to make a point of brushing the conversation off, her smile more practiced than natural. "We were just catching up, you know? I didn't want to bother you with it." The words hung in the air, but I didn't say anything. I just nodded, offering a smile that felt wrong on my face. She wasn't good at hiding things. She never had been. And yet, I didn't question her immediately. I trusted her. I always had. That trust, however, felt like it was starting to unravel in the quiet of that moment. I could hear my own heartbeat in the silence that followed. Her attempt at normalcy, at brushing everything aside, felt forced. It was as though she was trying to convince both of us that nothing had changed, that everything was fine. But I wasn't so sure. I could see the way she shifted in her chair, her gaze dropping to her hands, as if trying to find something to hold on to. The warmth that had once been so familiar now seemed foreign to me. The laughter had felt like it belonged to someone else, someone I didn't recognize. And as I stood there watching her, I realized how much I had started to notice the small changes. The things that had seemed insignificant at first, but now felt like puzzle pieces falling into place. Her phone was now resting face down on the table, the screen dark. I could feel the weight of the conversation that had just ended, the unspoken words that still hung in the air between us. The silence stretched on for a beat longer than it should have, and that uncomfortable tension settled in the pit of my stomach. I wasn't gonna press her, not tonight. It wasn't like me to jump to conclusions, to let suspicion cloud my judgment. I had always believed in trusting her, in giving her the benefit of the doubt. I had always told myself that if anything was truly wrong, she would tell me. But tonight felt different. I walked into the kitchen, my feet heavy on the floor as I approached the table. She looked up at me again, her eyes darting to mine before quickly looking away. The same nervous flicker in her gaze. She was trying to act casual, but I could see it now. The way she avoided my eyes, the way her smile didn't reach her face. The woman sitting before me was not the same one I had married. I chose to break the silence first, offering a casual remark as I leaned against the counter. "It's fine," I said, my voice steady, though the words felt foreign. "It's just that I haven't heard you laugh like that in a while. Everything okay?" She blinked, a slight shift of confusion in her eyes before the mask slipped back into place. "Yeah, everything's fine," she replied, her voice a little too quick, a little too light. "Just a lot on my mind. You know how it is." I nodded, forcing a smile, though it felt like the fake kind. The kind that didn't quite mask the doubt in my chest. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to let it go, to pretend that nothing had changed, that the warmth she had shared with me was still there. But deep down, I knew better. I stayed in the kitchen for a little while longer, giving her space, though the distance between us felt wider than ever before. The house felt quieter than it had in a long time. And as I watched her go about the rest of her evening, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I was losing her. Bit by bit, something had shifted. That was the first sign. The laugh, the warmth, the deflection. Things that used to feel so natural between us. But tonight they felt like a stranger's. And though I didn't confront her then, I couldn't forget it. Not ever. As the days went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. At first, I convinced myself that it was just a passing moment of doubt. After all, trust had always been the foundation of our relationship. I had always believed in the strength of our bond, the unspoken understanding between us. But as I watched Emily over the following week, I began to notice the small shifts in her behavior that I had once brushed off as nothing. Now, those little things felt like red flags waving in my face. She had started staying late at work more frequently. It wasn't unusual for her to have a busy schedule, but the frequency of these late nights seemed to increase almost overnight. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was ambitious, always eager to prove herself at the office, and I knew how important her career was to her. But then came the little things that started to add up. One evening, she mentioned she'd be working late again. "I'm just finishing up a project," she said, but there was an odd hesitation in her voice that I couldn't place. I didn't press her for details. I never did. But the words felt rehearsed, like a script she had memorized. I felt the familiar knot tighten in my stomach. She was doing this more often now. And the more she stayed late, the more distant she became when she came home. I tried to be understanding. I tried to remind myself that we had both been busy lately, and that work was just a temporary distraction. But it became harder to ignore as the days passed. I started finding her phone face down on the kitchen counter when I walked into the room, or when she left the room for just a few moments, she would leave it behind, the screen glowing in a way that seemed intentional. It wasn't just the phone, though. It was everything. She had stopped answering calls when I tried to reach her, and when she did pick up, her responses were short, clipped, as though she was distracted or preoccupied with something else. At times, she even seemed irritated by my attempts to talk to her, as if my voice had become another background noise she didn't need to deal with. I noticed the way her eyes darted to the phone every time it rang. Her hand would hover over it, but she would never pick it up in front of me. And when I asked her about it, about the strange behavior, she would always offer the same tired excuse. "I'm just tired. It's nothing, really. Don't worry about it." It wasn't just the phone, though. It was how she started coming home later and later, too. She'd say she was at work, or meeting with friends, or helping out with something at the office, but the truth didn't line up. There was always an excuse, always a reason for her to stay away just a little longer. And when she finally did come home, her makeup was always freshly applied. Her perfume just a little too strong. the kind of fragrance I hadn't recognized before. I didn't say anything about it. Couldn't. Not without sounding paranoid, without sounding like I was overthinking things. But inside, my gut was screaming that something wasn't right. It wasn't the kind of thing I could explain to anyone. It was a collection of small, insignificant moments that didn't seem worth mentioning on their own. But together, they painted a picture I wasn't ready to face. A picture of someone slipping away, someone who had started to distance herself from me in ways that were hard to ignore. I thought back to the night she had come home at 3 a.m. after what she had called a work meeting. It was a Saturday, and she had told me she was meeting with her boss to discuss some upcoming projects. When she walked through the door that morning, I could smell the faint scent of a new perfume, one I didn't recognize. It wasn't like the one she wore when we were out together, and it definitely wasn't the one she wore at home. I said nothing about it, though. I didn't want to seem like I was checking up on her. I didn't want to sound controlling. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't a work meeting. Couldn't have been. And I didn't have the courage to ask her outright. Not yet. In the days that followed, I found myself thinking about that night. How she had come home so late. Her makeup refreshed as though she had been somewhere else. Somewhere I wasn't invited. It wasn't just the late nights or the perfume or the excuses. It was the way she acted when I brought it up. She would shrug it off, say it was nothing, tell me I was imagining things. Her eyes would meet mine briefly, but they were never fully open. There was always a hint of guilt in them, a flicker that I couldn't ignore, but I pushed it aside. I had no proof. I had no reason to accuse her of anything. Then there was the matter of the photos. I hadn't meant to go looking for them. But one evening, while Emily was getting ready to go out with her friends, I found myself scrolling through her social media, something I'd never done before. I wasn't suspicious, not at first, but I couldn't help but notice the pictures she had been posting lately. Selfies with her friends, pictures of her smiling with people I didn't recognize. I thought nothing of it until I saw it. It was a picture of her, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. They were at a bar, laughing together, her arm around his waist as if they were closer than just friends. The man's hand was on her back, his fingers resting a little too low for a casual pose. I felt a lump form in my throat, but I forced myself to look away from the screen. I scrolled down, hoping it was just a fluke, but there it was again. Another photo, this time taken outside a restaurant, the same man beside her. She was smiling up at him with a look I hadn't seen in a long time. A look that wasn't for me. I knew I had to confront her. The picture, the way they looked together, it wasn't innocent. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Not when the evidence was staring me in the face. I had to ask her about it, even if it meant destroying the fragile peace we had left. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear her answers at all. But the truth had started to claw its way to the surface, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. That evening, I asked her about it. "Who's the guy in the pictures?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to sound casual, like I wasn't about to lose everything. Her face changed immediately. Her smile faltered, and her eyes darted away from mine. "Oh, that's just someone from work," she replied quickly, her voice soft. "Just a coworker, nothing special." "Is that so?" I asked, not bothering to hide the disbelief in my voice. "Because it doesn't look like nothing special to me." She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her fingers fiddling with the hem of her shirt. "I told you, Mark. It's nothing. Really." Her eyes didn't meet mine, and for the first time in a long time I realized something. I didn't need to look for reasons to worry. I didn't need to hunt for proof. I already had it. The truth was right in front of me. I had just been too scared to see it. The days after my conversation with Emily were a blur. I had all the answers I needed, but I wasn't ready to confront them just yet. The images from her social media, the late nights, the half-formed excuses, everything added up to something I wasn't prepared to face. But I knew that in order to move forward, I had to. There was no avoiding it. There was no more pretending. The confirmation came a few days later when I checked our shared credit card statement. I hadn't meant to snoop, but something made me uneasy when I saw a large charge for a luxury hotel. It was dated the weekend Emily claimed she had been visiting her sister. A visit I hadn't thought twice about at the time. But now, with everything swirling in my mind, it didn't make sense. I clicked into the details, my heart racing as I scrolled through the transaction. The charge was for a 2-night stay at a 5-star hotel in the city. The same city she had claimed to be hours away at her sister's place. It didn't add up. She had lied to me. Again. I stared at the screen, my mind reeling with questions I didn't want to answer. Who had she been with? Why hadn't she told me? I thought about calling her right then and there, confronting her with the evidence. But something stopped me. I wasn't ready to face her yet. I didn't want to be the guy who had to demand answers. I didn't want to hear her excuses. Instead, I went to the next step. I checked her social media again. It had become a habit now. A silent search for the truth hidden behind carefully curated photos. I clicked through her feed, hoping for a sign, a clue, anything that might explain what I had seen on the credit card statement. And there it was, a photo of Emily at the same hotel. It was posted only days after the charge, her arms around a man I didn't recognize. She had tagged the location, the same luxury hotel I had seen on the bill. They were standing side by side, a little too close, both smiling in a way that felt too personal, too *mate. Her face was flushed, the kind of flush she used to get when we were on a date, when we were happy. The man in the photo was unfamiliar, but something about the way they stood together, the way she looked at him, told me everything I needed to know. I felt my breath catch in my throat as the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Emily had been lying to me. She had been seeing someone else. I didn't have to look further. The truth was staring me in the face, clear and undeniable. It wasn't just a flirtation. It wasn't a casual mistake. This was something deeper, something more deliberate. She had been planning this. She had been hiding it from me for months, and now I had proof. The anger bubbled up in my chest, but I kept it in check. I wasn't ready to lose control, not yet. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. I wasn't the kind of man to get angry and scream, but the feeling of betrayal was so raw, so deep, that I could hardly breathe. I had trusted her. I had given her everything, and now I was left holding the pieces of a shattered trust. I waited for her to come home that night, knowing that when she walked through that door, things would change forever. I didn't know what I would say. I didn't know how I would react. But I knew that I couldn't keep pretending anymore. When she walked through the door, I was sitting in the living room, the photo still fresh in my mind. I didn't stand up when she entered. I didn't greet her. I just watched her, waiting for her to notice the silence. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice light and casual as though nothing had changed. She looked at me and smiled, but there was something in her eyes that was different. A flicker of guilt? A fear? Couldn't tell. I didn't respond immediately. I just stared at her, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to me? My heart felt heavy in my chest, the weight of her betrayal almost too much to bear. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Then, she asked, "Is everything okay?" I didn't say anything at first. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to make a scene. But the words I had been holding back for so long finally broke free. "I saw the photo, Emily," I said, my voice steady, but filled with so much pain. "I saw the one at the hotel. You were with him, weren't you?" Her face turned pale. Her eyes darted to the floor as she tried to compose herself, but I saw it. The guilt, the panic, the fear. It was all there. "Mark, I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, her voice shaking. "It's not what you think." I stood up, unable to sit any longer. I had to move, to do something, anything to release the tension that had been building inside me. "It's exactly what I think, Emily. You've been lying to me, and now I have the proof. I saw the photos, the hotel charge. I know what's been going on." She didn't meet my eyes. Instead, she started to speak again. Her words a jumble of excuses and apologies that I couldn't bring myself to care about. "It was just a mistake," she said weakly. "I was confused. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't mean to hurt you. A mistake." I repeated, my voice cold. You don't accidentally end up in someone's arms, Emily. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice you made over and over again. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had once loved. But that woman was gone. She wasn't the same person anymore. And neither was I. I wanted to tell you, she whispered. I just didn't know how. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I wanted to pretend that maybe, just maybe, there was a way to fix this. But deep down, I knew there was no going back. Trust, once broken, could never be fully repaired. I believed you, I said quietly. I trusted you, and you destroyed that trust. I handed her the folder, the one with the proof, the photos, the emails, the reservations. It's over, Emily. I can't do this anymore. She stared at the folder, the weight of it sinking in. For the first time in months, I saw her break down. A single sob escaped her lips, and her shoulders shook as she tried to keep it together. But I didn't comfort her. Couldn't. She didn't deserve my sympathy. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know what else to do. The words felt hollow. They didn't matter anymore. There was nothing left to fix. Some things don't need a perfect ending, I said, my voice firm, steady. They just need to end. The days after the confrontation felt like a fog. I had handed her the folder, the proof, the undeniable evidence of her betrayal, and I had watched her face crumple. She had cried, of course, but the tears didn't mean much. They were just another way to make herself feel better, to make me feel sorry for her. I had already heard all the excuses, all the apologies. It didn't change anything. Not anymore. What struck me the most, though, was the look in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't shame. It was resignation. She knew, deep down, that I wasn't going to forgive her. She knew there was no going back for us. I had spent the past few days trying to make sense of it all. The lies, the deceit, the careful manipulation. I couldn't believe it had been happening right under my nose. I had been blind. I had ignored the signs, told myself it was nothing, convinced myself that everything was fine. But now there was no pretending anymore. The truth was too big to ignore. She had tried to explain herself, tried to convince me that it was just a moment of weakness, that it meant nothing. But I didn't want to hear it. It was too late for apologies. I wasn't going to let her convince me that I should feel sorry for her. The woman I once loved was gone, and in her place was someone who didn't even recognize the person she had become. I didn't want to stay in the house anymore. The walls felt suffocating, like they were closing in on me with every breath I took. It was a reminder of everything I had lost. The life we had built together, the plans we had made, the future I had believed in. It all felt like a lie, a beautiful, fragile lie. I couldn't stay here, not with the memories hanging over me like a cloud. That night, I decided to leave. I didn't want to deal with her anymore. I didn't want to hear any more of her excuses or listen to her beg for forgiveness. I needed space. I needed time to think, to breathe, to get away from everything that reminded me of her. I had to escape. I packed my things quickly, my movements mechanical as I stuffed clothes into a duffel bag. The apartment I had been looking at for the past few days was ready for me. It wasn't much, a small one-bedroom on the other side of town, but it was mine. It was a place where I could start over, where I could rebuild. The house I had shared with Emily wasn't mine anymore. It never would be. I couldn't live in the shadow of our past. I walked through the house one last time, taking in the empty spaces, the silence that filled the rooms where once there had been laughter, where once there had been love. It felt strange, like I was walking through someone else's life, someone else's memories. I ran my fingers over the photos on the mantel, the ones of us on vacations, at family gatherings, in moments of happiness. They felt distant now, like they belonged to someone I didn't recognize. I thought about Emily. She was upstairs, in the bedroom we had once shared. Was she crying? Was she regretting everything she had done? I didn't care. I had spent too long trying to hold onto something that was already slipping away. I couldn't keep waiting for her to change, to realize what she had lost. I had already lost myself in the process. It was time to walk away. I left the house without saying goodbye. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to leave her with more of an excuse to guilt-trip me into coming back. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about me. This was about finding myself again. About reclaiming my life from the wreckage she had left behind. The new apartment was small and quiet. It was exactly what I needed. The first night, I sat on the floor, the only light in the room coming from the dim lamp in the corner. There was something peaceful about the emptiness. For the first time in weeks, I could hear myself think. I didn't feel the weight of her presence, didn't feel the burden of the lies hanging over me. I could breathe again. But as the days passed, the silence began to feel heavy. I was alone, truly alone, in a way I had never been before. The loneliness was suffocating, a constant reminder of what I had lost. I couldn't just ignore it. I couldn't just pretend that everything was okay. I had to face it, had to accept it. The woman I had loved had betrayed me. The life we had built was gone. I thought about the future. What did it hold now? What was I supposed to do with the pieces of a life I thought I had built? I didn't know. I didn't have any answers. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to let her take me down with her. It wasn't just Emily I had to let go of. It was everything, the life, the future, the dreams we had shared. I had to release it all. I had to start over. I had to find a new version of myself, one that wasn't defined by her or by the relationship we had once had. I started doing things for myself. I began running again, something I had stopped doing when we had gotten busy. I hadn't realized how much I missed it, how much I needed it. It was the only time I felt truly free, the only time I could clear my mind and focus on something other than the mess I had left behind. I also started reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in years. People I had pushed away when Emily and I became too absorbed in our own world. They were surprised to hear from me, but they welcomed me back with open arms. We went out for drinks, talked about old times, and laughed until our sides ached. It felt good to feel human again, to remember what it was like to just be me, without all the baggage of my failed marriage weighing me down. I started taking better care of myself, physically and mentally. I ate better, worked out more, and spent time doing things that made me happy. I started to feel like myself again, like the person I used to be before everything fell apart. And for the first time in months, I began to realize something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was healing. I didn't hear from Emily for a few days after I left. I didn't want to. I wasn't ready for the confrontation, for the apologies, for the guilt she would try to pile onto me. But when she finally reached out, it wasn't a surprise. I had expected it. She wanted to talk, to try and fix things. But I was done. I had made my decision. I wasn't going to let her drag me back into the toxic mess we had created together. I ignored her calls, didn't respond to her messages. I knew it would hurt her, but I didn't care. She had already hurt me more than I could ever imagine. There was nothing left to say. I thought about the future again, about what it held for me now. I didn't know. I didn't have any clear answers. But I did know one thing. I wasn't going to spend it in the past. I wasn't going to let her or what had happened define me anymore. The new chapter had big asterisk N. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't without pain, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Days turned into weeks. Life began to fall into some semblance of routine, but the pain never truly disappeared. It was always there, lurking just beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the life I had lost. I couldn't deny it anymore. Emily's betrayal had shattered something deep within me, but even as I walked through the motions of daily life, work, exercise, the occasional hangout with friends, the weight of the truth hung over me like a cloud. Every time I let my guard down, it felt like the walls I had built around my heart were beginning to crack. There were moments when I would catch myself smiling or laughing, only to be abruptly reminded that things would never be the same again. I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't unknow the lies, the deception. And yet, a part of me kept yearning for some kind of closure, some kind of explanation that would make the entire situation make sense. But there was no making sense of it. I had moved out of the house, but every time I drove past it, a pang of regret would hit me. It wasn't just a house. It was a home. It had been the place where we had started our lives together, where we had shared our hopes and dreams. It was the place where we had celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, and milestones. And now it was empty. It was just a house, a reminder of everything I had lost. I had been avoiding Emily's calls, and I knew it hurt her. She had sent me text messages, long rambling emails. Please for us to talk, for us to work things out. She begged for a second chance, promising she would change, that everything would be different. But I knew better. She had already shown me who she was. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had loved, was gone. She had left me behind in the ruins of our relationship, and I wasn't going to fall for her promises anymore. But one night, as I sat on the couch in my small apartment, I found myself staring at my phone. I had ignored her for weeks, but her message was still there, sitting in my inbox, unopened. It was a simple text, "I need to talk, please." My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep walking away, to keep moving forward with my life. But another part of me, an irrational, weak part of me, wanted to hear her voice again. I wanted to hear her say she was sorry. I wanted to hear her say that she still cared. But I knew I couldn't do that. Couldn't go back. I couldn't allow myself to be ked into the same cycle of hurt and betrayal that had defined the last year of my life. But I texted her back anyway. Fine. One last time. I wasn't sure what I expected from the conversation. Maybe I thought she would finally admit everything. Maybe I thought she would be completely honest with me, strip away the lies and give me the truth I had been waiting for. But when I met her at the coffee shop a few hours later, I realized something. I wasn't there for answers anymore. I wasn't there to hear her excuses or to listen to her plea for forgiveness. I was there for closure. I was there to make sure I could walk away for good. When she walked into the cafe, I barely recognized her. She was wearing a simple dress, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her eyes a little puffy from crying. She looked broken, but broken in the way a person becomes when they have been caught in a lie for too long. There was no grace left in her, no charm. She was just a woman, tired and ashamed, sitting across from the man she had betrayed. "Mark," she said, her voice soft. She sat down in front of me, avoiding eye contact. "I'm glad you agreed to meet me." I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at her. I didn't need to speak. The silence was enough. "I know you're angry," she continued, finally lifting her gaze to meet mine. "I know you have every right to be. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed, but it wasn't a joyful sound. It was bitter, hollow. "Is that what this is? An apology? You didn't want to hurt me?" She flinched, but she kept her eyes locked on mine. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I didn't plan it. It was a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated. "You think sleeping with another man is a mistake? You think it was just some random slip-up?" I shook my head. "No, Emily. You made a choice. Over and over again." Her lips trembled, and she looked down at her hands. "I know," she whispered. "I know. I'm so sorry, Mark. I don't know how to make this right. I don't know what I can say that will make you understand. But I truly am sorry." I watched her, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, I saw her for who she was. Not the woman I had loved, not the person I had trusted, but someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. She was broken, yes, but she was broken in the way that people get when they are desperate to protect themselves. And I wasn't going to be her shield anymore. "I don't need you to make it right," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You can't make it right. The damage is done." Her eyes filled with tears, and she wiped them away quickly. "Mark, please. I know I hurt you. I know I ruined everything. But I'm still the person you fell in love with. I still care about you. Please, can we fix this?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at her. The woman I had fallen in love with was still there, somewhere, but she wasn't the one sitting in front of me anymore. The person I had once known was gone, replaced by someone who had betrayed me in the worst way possible. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said, my voice breaking a little. I don't know if I even want to try. She reached across the table, her hand trembling as she placed it on top of mine. Please, Mark. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut him out of my life. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I love you. I pulled my hand away, my chest tightening. You don't get it, Emily? I said, my voice harsh now. You don't get to come here to act like everything can just go back to normal. It's over. It's been over for a long time. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I had once loved. But the moment passed quickly. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to fix. I don't want you to feel guilty, I said softly. I want you to understand that this is my decision. I'm done. I need to let go. And so do you. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just nodded. Her eyes filled with a sorrow I couldn't bear to look at any longer. Goodbye, Emily, I said, standing up to leave. I hope you find what you're looking for. As I walked away, I felt the weight of everything I had been carrying. The pain, the betrayal, the years of my life that had been spent loving someone who hadn't deserved it. I was free, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I left without a word, no scene, no drama. I grabbed my things, stepped out of the life we built, and didn't look back. I wasn't angry, just empty, like a part of me had died when our marriage did. The new apartment was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in what felt like forever, I sat alone, not burdened by lies. I wasn't sure where my life would go from here, but it felt like a new chapter, one without her. No apologies, no regrets. It was over and I needed to move on. The silence was a relief, and as I sat there, I realized I was finally free. I stopped pretending to be okay. There was no anger, no bitterness, just emptiness and the weight of liberation. I began focusing on myself again, picking up hobbies I'd abandoned, reconnecting with friends. She went on with her life, thinking I'd wait around. But I didn't. I stepped into my new life. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was healing. No longer her partner, I was free to become someone else, someone stronger. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was becoming me again.